Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Primeaval Sanctuary, where we will be building an herbivore habitat with an elevated area right above it, housing some dimetrodons. Hello everyone, welcome to the building segment of this video, and like I said in the intro, we will be building this herbivore habitat with an elevated area right above it, just so we can have a peek into the enclosure, a better view of the enclosure, so to speak. Now, currently, I'm placing some facility path right next to the main thoroughfare, because even though the main thoroughfare is the thickest path we have in the game, it is still, in the grand scheme of things, very, very thin, and if I just left it like this, our guests would feel a strong sense of claustrophobia, and of course, there would be no place to put decoration. There would be absolutely no space, so I had to place the facility path, just so we get that extra capacity. Now, I'm just bordering the path with a bunch of fencing and multi-wall pieces, just so the guests don't run off and get lost, because them getting lost means a likely lawsuit, and we don't want lawsuits in this park, because that would mean losing money, and losing money is bad, because then we won't have any money to build anything, even though we can clearly see in the bottom right-hand corner that we have unlimited money. It is still pretty bad to lose money. I have no idea what I'm yapping about, so let's just move back to what I'm building. I can't really talk about much right now because it's literally just placing a bunch of multi-wall pieces. But hold on, I'm just gonna say, Frontier, thank you so much for JWE3 and how short fencing is going to be added into that game, because that would be an absolute game changer for the time it takes to actually place concrete barriers and multi-wall pieces to act as this sort of substitutes for small fencing. It would just be an absolute game changer for short fencing. That's all I'm gonna say, Frontier. But yeah, right now on this little tiny hill, I'm placing some rocks mixed in with some, tiger rocks mixed in with some Mediterranean rocks, just so our dinosaurs don't climb up the hill and terrorize our guests, because once again, terrorization from the dinosaurs would mean a possible lawsuit, and we don't want lawsuits, because once again, we would be losing money, and that's not good. And yeah, right now, you can see that in the middle of the water, I did some rock terrain paints. That's just to give it this little extra sense of depth. And yeah, I'll be honest, for this game, enclosure building is probably my biggest strength. I'm not that good at building guest areas, and that's why this part of the park, it's pretty much just path and multi-wall pieces. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of this enclosure and the enclosure right above it. Let me just get a sip of water real quick. Okay, now we have the taiga trees being placed in the middle of the enclosure, because taiga, it's probably the best taiga has the best set of trees out there in this game. I will just admit that right away. It just has such good height variation, right? There's small trees, medium trees, larger trees, but for like tropical or alpine, it's pretty much all just tall trees with like a very small and terrible, might I add, selection of small trees and medium trees. So that's why I personally love building on taiga. Temperate is also pretty cool to build on, but no, I still rank taiga as my #1 favorite decoration set for trees. Anyway, let's get to the Synapsid enclosure housing our dimetrodons. I'm just placing a bunch of rocks, mainly because when I think of dimetrodons, I think of this arid, deserty sort of habitat, right? That's the vibe that they give off. So that's why I didn't place much grass for the texture paint, and instead use more of rocks and dirt, because, you know, when I think of dimetrodons, they're the crocodiles of the prehistoric kingdom, and it's just like crocodiles, even though they live in water, they still seem pretty dry, right? Not in the metaphorical brain rot sense of dry, but like dry as in no water. But whatever, you don't get what I'm saying. But I'm just placing a bunch of tiger trees, and I had a whole lot of fun placing these tiger trees, because once again, there's so much height variation, and you can play around with the height variation so much, right? Like, you can place like a bunch of smaller trees right in front of the larger trees, just so like you can get this sort of like culty effect, right? Like, the smaller trees are worshipping the bigger trees. But anyway, let's get that out of the way. I'm I'm starting to hatch some of the dinosaurs. I went to the, what's it called? I keep forgetting what it's called. The species viewer. Yes, the species viewer. And I favorited the skins I liked for these few dinosaurs, the Chimerosaurus, the Trike, and the Pachycephalosaurus. And I went back into the save file of Primeaval Sanctuary, and I went on the favorited skins, and I hatched the dinosaurs, and I placed them in the enclosure. I did fear that this enclosure would be a bit overstocked, but now that I think about it, it is very understocked. I could have probably gone with 4 or 5 trikes, but I only went with 3. Anyway, let's get to the visuals since we are done. And that marks the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any ideas for the park, feel free to tell me what they are down in the comments. Have a great day, and see you next time.